Welcome to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch podcast. Join us on our journey as we recap, examine, and critique the series episode by episode from the beginning.
We'll be keeping our podcast spoiler free, so we welcome fans new and old to join us in watching and reflecting on one of our favorite shows.
Currently, we're on season 3.
I'm your host, Jess Sabanko.
And I'm your host, Mia Sobanko.
Now let's get into this week's episode.
This week, we're discussing Season 3, Episode 9, Coyote Piper. It originally aired on January 11th, 2001, and had 5.12 million viewers. So before we get into it, I just want to let you guys know I'm in the process of moving right now, and my mic is somewhere in my storage unit, so I have to go there this week and find it. So for today, I am recording just on my AirPods. So if the audio quality is a little lower than usual, I do apologize. But for this episode and episode 10, this is what we're dealing with. After that, we should be back to normal.
All right, perfect. Sorry to hear that, you guys. All right, let's get started. You want me to do the first scene?
Go for it.
Okay. So it starts in the manor downstairs, and Prue and Leo are looking at a poster board with pictures of Piper in high school and now, and then as well as other students from her class, and it says Baker High, class of 90. And Prue's explaining that high school was really hard for Piper and that she was like Jan Brady. And Piper then announces that she's coming down the stairs, and Prue tells Leo to be supportive no matter what. And she walks down in like the most over-the-top dress and a lot of makeup. She looks gorgeous, but it's a lot, you know? And they give her like a weird face and they tell her that she looks great. And she says she looks ridiculous and is freaking out about the whole situation. And Leo said, "Isn't this supposed to be a fun thing, going back and seeing all your old friends?" And she's like, "You weren't by chance popular in high school, were you?" And Leo's like, is there a right answer to this question? And Prue just shakes her head at him. And Piper says, "Leo, I didn't like high school, not even a little bit. I was nobody in high school." And Prue comes over and tells her that she wasn't, but then Piper's like, "Prue, you were class president. You have no idea what it's like to be on the other side. I had this stupid idea that I'd go back in 10 years and show them all, and all I'm going to show them is that I'm a big-haired freak." And Prue says, "You do not look like a freak. You just don't look like yourself." She says, "Well, if I could go as myself, I wouldn't be having this problem." And Leo goes, "So this is like a costume party?" And Prue pushes him, and Piper says, "Well, what I mean is I'm this super powerful witch who's engaged to a white lighter, saving the world from evil on a daily freaking basis, and all these people are going to see is the same pitiful loser who still lives at home with her sisters and her unemployed boyfriend." And Prue offers to fix her hair and make her the hottest chick at the reunion. And then Leo suggests that they invite Phoebe to join them since she's been kind of distant. Piper says, "Leo, when you find out your boyfriend is a demon and then you have to vanquish him, a little alone time is in order." And then Piper leaves, and Prue says, "Besides, I think she's kind of avoiding me. I mean, I never really liked Cole, and then I tried to warn her. I think it's a whole wounded pride thing." And Leo's like, "So what do we do?" Prue says they're going to double team, sends him to help Phoebe with her demons, and says that she will help Piper with hers, and they both get up.
All right. So a lot to cover here.
Yeah, kind of a long intro.
Yeah. So I want to ask a little bit about kind of like the whole high school reunion thing. Obviously, you graduated high school last year. This is very far off from you, but this is something that's like coming up for me. Like that would be like next year for me. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Oh, wow, is it?
yeah, I graduated high school 9 years ago.
That's crazy. Wow, that's wild to think about.
So, Mia, what were you like in high school in your own words?
Oh, God. I don't know. I was very, like, I wasn't popular, but I was known. Like, everybody knew who I was, but I wasn't, like, popular. I kind of just stuck to my own crowd and didn't really care for anybody else. And I was just cool, I guess. Kind of like the stoner crowd, you know, those were my friends.
Yeah. How big was your school? Like, were there a lot of people that went there? Like, did you know everybody or it was like smaller?
No, it was a pretty decent size. I mean, my class probably had, I don't know, maybe like 300 students. No, maybe not that much. I don't know. Somewhere in
So
that range.
small.
Is that small?
Yes. Like, I went to a very small school for New Jersey, and there were 345 kids in my class, and that's considered a small school.
Oh my God, I didn't know it was like that in Jersey. Yeah, no, not like that for us. That I thought that was big.
So you knew basically everyone you went to school with, right? Like, for the most part?
Yeah, my class
Like,
at
if you
least.
didn't know them personally, like, you kind of knew who everyone was.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So I knew most people I went to school with, not all. I also will say, like, when I was in high school, I was in all the like honors and AP classes. So for the most part, all my classes were with the same people all the time. So
Mhm.
even though it was like a bigger school, the people I saw on a daily basis all 4 years were basically the same, except for like my electives and stuff. And even then, it was a lot of people I knew from my other classes taking the same electives as me. I definitely wasn't popular. Much like between groups too, like who I hung out with the first this was like very different than who I was hanging out with senior year. Because by senior year I had like kind of gone into a new group of friends and most of them were already out of high school. My friends that you know, all of
Mhm.
them except like two are the year older than me. And like that's who I'm still friends with today. I'm not really friends with like people I was friends with like freshman through junior year. Like there are a couple people I'm still friendly with, but like no one I'm super close to from that time. So I
Mhm.
guess I was like, I don't know, like I
Yeah,
wasn't
I get that.
Prue, but I
That was
also
fair.
wasn't Piper. I guess I was somewhere kind of in between them.
Yeah, I would say the same about myself. I definitely wasn't hyper bad, but I was definitely not Prue popular or anything like that either. I mean, I've had the same friends for probably since like middle school, or like generally the same group of friends that I still do hang out with. Obviously not all of them, but I mean most of them, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was
You
had the
also
same deal
lived
where
in the same town your whole life. I didn't have that experience.
yeah, you guys hopped around a lot.
Mhm.
So it was a little different, but I guess neither of us were the Piper or the Prue in this situation. I mean, to be completely honest, it's not that common. Like they obviously, you know, in TV they make it sound like a lot more crazier than it is. Like,
Yeah.
oh, they got her with the stereotypical ponytail and acne and the glasses. Like, come on.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly,
Overselling it for sure.
not like even if I guess personality wise, I was a little closer to Piper
Hmm.
as far as like my whole grade goes, but as far as like my specific section of the school, like I was like more outgoing and stuff. It's just like with randos, I wasn't like that. So like people
Right.
probably would have seen me more like how they saw Piper, but like people who like actually knew me might have like thought of me more as like Prue because like within my classes and within the things I was doing like in theater and everything, I was like taking those leadership roles and like participating a lot. I just wasn't like class president or a cheerleader.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. I would probably say the same kind of general deal for myself.
I'll
I
also say
mean,
that like
I
I
think
didn't have
Piper looked gorgeous here.
have
Sorry,
like
go ahead.
bad skin or like braces or anything. Like I look the same as I look now. I'll just say that too.
Me too. I've never been like that was never me. I've always been pretty. What can I say?
I won't say that about myself, but high school wise, I was pretty by then. My awkward phase was in middle school.
Yeah, me too, for sure. I definitely got through that. So,
But let's talk a little bit more about the sisters. So we're learning, I feel like stuff that isn't super surprising based off their personalities, that this is
mhm.
kind of what their high school experiences were. I think it's interesting the way like we're getting the idea that Leo was also popular in high school, which I feel like someone who was popular always ends up with someone who wasn't in TV. Like that's just such a like trope.
Always. I could totally see that him being kind of popular in high school too.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
is so
Leo's
funny
only
though.
18 right now, so
I know. High school was very recent for him. I can't believe that. Not a chance. She's, what's it called? Robbing the cradle?
yes, exactly.
My lord.
It's also interesting the way that Piper's trying so hard. I think that's another thing that doesn't surprise me. Like, it really relates to who she is, caring about what other people think, wanting to impress people. We saw that in season one, deja vu all over again, when she ran into that girl Joanne she went to high school with and was kind of having those same feelings of insecurity. We're seeing that repetition. So even though we've seen so much growth in Piper's character since then, there are definitely those aspects of insecurity that still linger in her. And I'm interested to see how those are going to be played with throughout the episode.
Yeah, me too. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't change that you still have those feelings and that is generally who she is. You know, they're not drifting too far from her character by doing these things. And it seems like it's almost like a setback for her, you know? Like she's grown, but obviously seeing these things come to the surface and this nervousness about what other people think, it probably just brings her back a little bit to that high school mindset and kind of is going to be a setback. That's what I would assume, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's another difference between like her and Prue, because we see the way that like Prue and Leo both, because their experiences didn't rely on like, because when people like you don't have to feel insecure about how people feel about you. So both of them are just like, oh, why do you even care what people think? But like when you've actually had experiences of people treating you badly because of how they perceive you, you start to like have that insecurity about how people are viewing you. And I definitely
Right.
relate to Piper. Like, I get what she's going through in this episode for sure.
No, me too. I definitely, and I can't wait to see how she kind of goes about the situation and how they handle it throughout this episode. It's a very good episode. I'll say that.
Yes. And the only other thing I'll mention from this scene, other than the little Jan Brady reference, which was cute, funny, another middle sister. So that was a nice little pop culture thing they threw in. But
I think
other
we
than
both
that,
know that I don't know who that is.
do you really not? You've never seen
It
the Brady
sounds
Bunch?
it sounds okay, that's what I thought it was from, but I never saw it. I never saw
Okay.
it, but that's what I assumed it was from.
So in the Brady Bunch, there are three sisters. The oldest one is Marcia, and she's like popular, beautiful. Like everyone knows her. She's known for like being the prettiest girl in town, basically, because this
Mhm.
show's from the 70s. Then there's Jan, who's kind of like the awkward, smart one who like always gets left behind and forgotten. And then there's like the little one who's just like cute and funny and like witty.
Okay, so literally basically these sisters.
Kind of, yeah. So it's really playing on like that role that like the middle sister is like awkward and forgotten about and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay, I see. Good to know.
Yeah, I forget. Like you're younger, some of our listeners might be too. So if anyone isn't familiar with the Brady's, that is what that reference is.
Yes.
And then the only other thing I want to mention in the scene is this kind of Phoebe's distance from her sisters that seems to be going on. I'm interested to see how that's going to be played out in this episode and if there is going to be a conflict between her and Prue, because Prue kind of gets this idea that Phoebe's avoiding her specifically.
Right. Which seems a little bit more like a prideful thing on her part to me. Because, like, Phoebe obviously is just avoiding everybody. But they also don't know exactly how things actually went down. So I am interested to see how it's been affecting her since it happened and kind of what she's going through dealing with what happened, you know?
Yeah, definitely. All right. And I think we can finally move on from the first scene.
I know. A half hour later.
Literally. So then we're in this like candlelit lair, and there's this guy, and he smashes something and is yelling at this like very pretty woman. He says, I made you from my own blood, found you a flawless body, and housed you in it. You were supposed to be my, and she says, masterpiece. I'm not a painting, Kirkin. That blood gave me your powers, your lust for life. Yet you hold me captive in this soul, and you expect me to be grateful? And he says, Balthazar was more powerful than either of us. Where is he now? Vanquished by the charmed ones. And then she starts teasing him for being a powerful alchemist, but afraid of three little witches. And then he threatens to start over with her, and she stabs herself in the chest. And this like blue essence smoke thing comes out of her and floats away. And Kirkin's like, I will find you, Terra. You belong to me.
Love the high drama from Dwight Schrute. Sorry, the actor who plays Kirkin, if you haven't seen this, it's the same. I forget what his name is in real life, but the one who plays Dwight in The Office. And it's so funny to see him in such a drama scene to me.
Both of these actors throughout the episode see her in this scene, but like so dramatic, so much yelling.
Mm-hmm. Yelling, the
Her part was
movement, like,
very overdone.
yeah, it definitely went a little, yeah, this part felt a little bit much for me. And even when we see, well, at least him again later, it's like, all right, yeah, the high drama's crazy, but it's okay. Still works. I mean, we get the point. Obviously, she wants to get away from this guy who I guess created her, and I can only assume that this is somehow going to affect the witches.
Yes. I also just feel like it's so convenient that they're talking about Balthazar. Like
I know. It felt a little like, all right, you guys kind of
it
threw
felt
that
like
one
the
in there.
writers just trying to, in case we missed last week's episode, tell us what happened.
Yeah, like a little subtle recap, but not so subtle.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it just felt weird to me. It felt off-putting. Like talking about the charmed ones, I guess, because they're going to connect to the charmed ones later. But like it just felt really weird that for them to be talking about Balthazar's Vanquish.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was thinking the same thing. Like I said, this scene was a little over the top in a couple of aspects, but it's okay.
Yes. But also, as much as I didn't enjoy her acting, this woman is gorgeous. So
Oh,
good for her.
beautiful. She's really pretty. She doesn't need to have talent.
Maybe she does. Maybe this was just one bad job.
Yeah, could be.
To you. But also, I will say, it's a spoiler territory, but the other two actors who take on the persona of Terra in this episode, I think, are much subtler and do a much better job of playing her.
I agree. I definitely agree. Which obviously one of them not surprising at all.
Yeah, exactly, because we see her all the time and know
Right.
how great she is.
So now we are outside on the street and some guy is in a suit talking on the phone about like a video game design and fixing himself, like looking in the reflection of a building. And he kind of seems like a douchebag a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the blue essence from before floats up over to him and he breathes hard as it like enters him. And he hangs up the phone and his demeanor completely changes. And he says, I've never been a man before. Walking should be interesting. And in the reflection, we see the guy, his actual soul, I guess, in all white with like this glow around him. And he asks what's going on. And Tara's like, I want you to take me to the charmed ones. And he's like, what? She's like, the witches, you fool. They go by Halliwell. And he starts yelling out for help, but no one can hear him. Says that he's a trapped soul and only Tara can see him. Or Terra, sorry. I don't know.
Yeah. So interesting. We get the idea that whatever this blue essence is possesses people. And when they're possessed, they become trapped in like the world of reflections, which I think is a really cool idea. And I like the way the episode plays with that throughout.
Me too. I wasn't like expecting something like that. I don't know if it's something that they do again or if it's maybe just with this specific character, you know, that can possess people. So it was pretty cool to see. I like the way that they had that going and the way they do it, used that to their advantage throughout the episode. It worked well for me.
Yeah, and it really brings me back to the season 1 episode with like Callie and how like we got that idea that like like a mirror sees your true soul, like your true reflection. So I really like the way that that's the way like the souls can be reflected when they're possessed.
Agreed.
Also, the way she just expects some random guy on the street to know who the charmed ones are, hilarious.
But it doesn't not make sense, you know? Like, it works for me because, I mean, think about it. Like, she's been trapped there. She's got no clue. She's only ever heard of these witches. She doesn't know what people on the surface actually think and know and don't know, you know? So it
Yeah.
is really funny to me.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it and I like their banter. And like I said, I really like the way that this guy is taking on the role of Terra, like the way he completely switches up the way he was playing like the man in the suit versus like once he's possessed. I think it's really good. I think it's really effective. I like the tonal shift in his voice. I like everything about his body. Also, walking should be interesting. Hilarious line, something I never thought about and
Yeah.
don't want to think about.
I know. I've never ever, like, that thought has never crossed my mind. Like, I'm so confused about it. But because once she said it, I was like, huh, I wonder what that is like. But that is so funny. Loved it.
Yes. So then after that, we have the theme. And when we return, we're in Piper's room. And she's standing in front of the mirror in this like business suit with her hair in a bun. And we see that there are clothes all over the bed. And she's still feeling unsure about her outfit. And Prue makes this joke about how they've already tried on everything. And Piper says, I'm sorry. I just don't think I can do it. I can't go there and face all those horrific people. And Prue's like, why do you even care what these people think? And she says, only a former cheerleader could ask that question. And she says, all right, look, I realize that high school was very hard for you, but you are not that shy, awkward girl anymore. Now you are going and you're going to have a great time, young lady. And Piper's like, you are not the boss of me. And Prue's like, oh, I am too. And starts talking about this bad date that she went on last night and says that he only scored a 2. And Piper says, oh, Prue, please don't tell me you're making lists again. She goes, of course I am. Lists are good. Why waste your time if it's not going to work out? And Piper says she'll look around the reunion for Prue. And Prue says that younger men are not on her list. That's when Phoebe walks in and asks if either of them have seen her glasses. And they say no. And she walks out of the room upset.
So here, I like the banter between the two of them. It works so good or so well for me. I mean, you know, Prue trying to keep that confidence and like get her through it and be like, I don't understand why, like you said earlier. And you're like, well, we had two different experiences, you know? So I see where both of them are coming from with their perspectives, and it works well for me. I don't know. I think the whole list thing kind of came out of left field, but it's all right. It works for the episode.
It's something that fits Prue's personality for me. I get like in the scene, it felt like a little bit of a weird shift into that from what they were talking about before. But I think for Prue's character, this whole list thing is really cute. And like, especially since we saw at the end of last season that she was so focused on finding Mr. Right. And like, Prue is such a perfectionist. So the idea of her like having a list of like what the guy she dates should be like just makes total sense to me.
Yeah, it definitely tracks for me too. I could see it. Like I said, it just felt like it got kind of thrown in there out of nowhere when it's something that she's never like really mentioned before or
Yeah.
had signs
It's
of.
also a thing with Prue's character. I feel like the show flip-flops constantly between whether or not she wants to be dating right now. Like it's like
It
one
does.
episode she has no interest in dating, the next episode she's like doing everything she can to find a boyfriend.
Yeah, she's very much like hot and cold with this. I don't know if they're doing it like that on purpose, but it's definitely not very consistent.
No, because like beginning of season, it's like I only care about demons. Then it's like all of a sudden I want a boyfriend. Then it's like actually I only care about demons. Actually, I only care about a boyfriend. Like the writers can't decide what they want to do with Prue's character, I feel like.
Yeah, that's what it seems like for me too.
And it's like there's nothing wrong with having a female character who's taking a break from dating, who's not interested in romance, whatever. We already have two romantic storylines going on for the other two sisters right now. We don't necessarily need one for Prue, but I feel like sometimes in TV, when they're writing a female character, they don't know what to do if she doesn't have a love interest. So they have to keep flip flopping between whether or not she wants one.
Right. I see that too. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I do think that it would have been cool if she just was one of those like independent, you know, work and personal life oriented people who doesn't need a man, you know?
Yes.
Like, that would be perfectly acceptable. Almost like more realistic in a sense too.
Yeah, and with everything Prue's going through and is going through,
Mm-hmm.
I see dating not being her priority. It makes sense, like, or she could date very casually. Like, it doesn't need to be like this, I'm looking for the love of my life all the time type thing that I feel like the show is doing.
Right, I agree.
And then, we're getting a little bit of that Phoebe avoidance here, which will obviously become clear in the next section of this scene.
So now they move to the hallway, and Prue and Piper follow her out and ask her if she wants to come tonight. And Piper says you can work the bar and make some yucky drinks for some ex-cheerleaders. And then Prue shoves her shoulder, and Phoebe laughs but says that she needs to catch up on schoolwork, and Prue says that they're there if she needs to talk, and she says that she knows and she's okay. And Piper's like, really? Because you haven't spent like 5 minutes in the same room with us for over a week. And she says, I'm sorry. It's just there are some some answers that I need, and I sort of need to find them for myself, But I'm okay. Don't worry about me. And she tells Piper that she looks beautiful and tells them to have fun and leaves. So here was our first little glimpse of Phoebe and kind of how she's doing with her whole perspective. Obviously, it's got to be rough for her still having to keep that from her sisters. I think we've gone over in the past kind of Phoebe's inability to keep a secret, and keep things hidden. But this is a little more difficult for her. And obviously, we know the real reason it's been hard for her to spend a lot of time with them right now is because of that fact.
Yes.
And she must be feeling guilty too, there must be so much going on in her mind, poor girl.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the way Phoebe's acting right now makes a lot of sense to me. And when we find out like what she's doing in this episode, it will kind of make even more sense what these answers she's looking for are. I think it's interesting and I'm excited to talk more about that. I like the way that each of the sisters are kind of dealing with Phoebe, the way that Piper is pushing a little bit, but not too much to try to get her to get back involved with them. And like Prue's really trying to understand Phoebe more. I think it makes sense with where their relationships are and who they are as characters. I mean, you can make some yucky drinks for some ex cheerleaders, hilarious, because we know that Phoebe also wasn't popular in high school. So,
Right. So I think it definitely it worked for her to try to make that joke, kind of lighten the mood. It did feel very sisterly for me, the way that they were handling it, pushing a little, but still giving her that same respect and space. So, it works well for me.
yeah. And kind of that concern for her distance, right? That we're seeing here. Like, it's been over a week since the vanquish of Cole, and there is that distance. Obviously, we know what's going on, and I'm excited to see, what'll happen with the sisters, whether Phoebe chooses to keep this secret longer or if they do end up finding out.
Finding out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how it goes.
So then we move outside and we see Piper, Prue, and Leo loading things into the car. And then this red car pulls up by them, and there's this guy inside who says, Piper Hallowell, you still living at home? And then he gets out of the car and she goes over and says his name is Justin Harper as like she smiles and they hug each other. Over by the car, Leo asks Prue if this is Piper's ex, and Prue tells him not to worry, he's just a friend from school. Besides, he had a really big crush on me. He used to follow me around like a puppy dog. And then Piper asks Justin if he's going to the reunion, and he seems really excited about it. And then she asks him if he can help bring some of the stuff to P3. Prue brings him some trays, and he calls her Phoebe. And then Piper goes over by Leo, and he tells her that they're calling, and she says that she needs him tonight, and he promises to be back. And they kiss, and then he goes. Then over a little further down the street, we see Terra in a car, and the guy in the mirror is begging to be let go. And she says that she needs to get one of them alone. The transfer is a little messy. I can't do it anywhere. And he starts saying that he feels like he's suffocating. And she's like, that's because your soul is dying. It'll be easier if you don't fight it. And then she closes the mirror and follows Justin's car as it pulls off.
Wonderful. So, real quick, how did she know where to find them? How did she
Maybe
find
she
them?
looked them up in like the phone book or something.
Yeah, charmed ones.
Well, she knew their last name is Hallowell.
Oh, you're right. She did know that. Okay. I forgot that they had said that because I was about to say, like, this guy obviously didn't know who she was talking about. So how did she find them?
Yeah, I feel like they like looked her up either online or like in the phone book or something and found
Must
them.
have been the case. So whoever this Justin character is, he seems like a cool dude. Wonder what part he's gonna play in this episode, and I like that he kind of humbled Prue there a little bit.
I know, because when Prue was talking, I was just like, "Oh, Prue." Like, I get it, because like I act that way sometimes. But she's like, "He had such a crush on me." It's like, okay, Prue, we get it. You were hot shit in high school. We all already
Yeah,
know.
I know this isn't news. We got it.
But I also like Leo's little like worry, like, "Oh, is this Piper's ex?" Like,
I know the little slight jealousy was kind of cute.
I know we haven't seen that since the Dan days, so it was fun to see that like aspect of Leo's character
I know
again.
it's been a while.
I know. But yeah,
I'm
no,
loving
I'm
it.
interested in this Justin character and what he might have going on in the episode. Obviously, he gets like a full name. We get the idea that he's friends with Piper, so I'm interested to see what his character will be.
Me too.
And I'm also really
I'm kind of
enjoying this character, this actor playing Terra here. Like, really like the way he's playing the two roles.
yeah, no, he's doing a really good job, honestly, at like playing the energy just right, not too intense.
And also the idea that the soul is dying. I'm interested in what that means and the
Right? Like if
transfer idea too.
I mean, we already know how she made the transfer in the first place, so it sounds like this guy has something coming to him. But
Yeah, and it's not good. His soul might not be the only thing dying here.
yeah, not quite. So, anyways, we move on to the mausoleum, and Phoebe is standing over where she fake vanquished Cole, and she says, "Cole, if you can hear me, I can't stand lying anymore. I have to tell my sisters that you're alive, that I let you go, and that you would never do anything to hurt us, and that you love me. I just don't know how to do it." And then she leans against this tomb that's in the mausoleum and gets a premonition. And it's like really olden times, and a woman with like glowing red eyes throws an electricity ball at a man and that's like with her, and he holds a baby that she stole away from him. And Phoebe comes back and she looks back at the tombstone behind her and wipes the dust off the name and sees that it says Benjamin Coleridge Turner, 1859 to 1888. So, what is this? A little bit of backstory for Cole?
Yeah, we knew that his mom was a demon, right? We found that out in the last episode. Here we're seeing her. And of course, we're seeing his dad too, in that she had a baby with him and then killed him.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess obviously raised him as a demon. Here's my thing that makes my head ache a little bit. So, the demons, they live forever. They don't grow old, but they grow up from being a child. Like, is there like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know how it decides like what age they stop aging. Like, do you stop aging at 20? Do you stop aging at 30? Like, when do you stop aging? It's just like
Exactly. So it doesn't, I mean, it's a little confusing, but I get it, I guess, because they don't grow old and die. They just get killed.
yeah, like at some point they stay the same age, but like how does that happen? When does it happen?
Right. It's definitely a little confusing to me, and I don't think it's something we ever really get clarity on.
Yeah, and like we see demons of like different ages. Like we've seen demons who appear older, we've seen demons who appear younger.
Hmm.
It's just like I wonder if the show will ever answer anything like that for us.
Yeah, me too. I can only hope.
But
Anything
yeah,
else to
no.
add there?
The only thing I'll add, why was Phoebe talking to him like she thought he could hear him? Like, when has that ever been one of Cole's powers?
I mean, to be fair, she doesn't really know what he's able to do. I mean, Leo was able to. She only knows him as like Cole until that happened.
All right,
But
I'll
I
give her
see
a
she's
pass.
probably, it just seems like desperation to me, you know? Like I think she knew that he couldn't hear her, but sometimes you just got to say it out loud, you know?
All
And I
right, I'll
wonder
give
what
it to
this
you.
right, you know, just but I wonder how this like what this information is going to do for her, you know? Like what was she looking for, you know?
Yeah, it feels like she kind of went there for a sense of closure, and then she gets this premonition, which is going to lead her somewhere else. And I'm interested to see what that is.
Right. And it seems like here she doesn't have too much regret either.
Hmm.
Because she's
Yeah,
still like, she genuinely believes he would have never hurt them and, you know, that it's okay. It seems like the only thing that she really feels guilty about at the moment is lying to her sisters.
yes.
And I wonder if that's something that changes if, you know, if they get back or if he turns evil again and she's proven wrong. Like, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah, me too. So then we're at P3 and we see the place is all decorated, and there's this blonde woman telling people who are setting up that the sign is crooked. Then Prue and Piper are walking down the stairs with trays, and Prue says, "Now just remember, even if you can't tell them you're a super witch, you can still act like it." And then Piper spots the blonde woman, who we find out is Missy Campbell, and she starts freaking out. She puts down the trays and walks over and says hi and introduces herself. But at first, Missy doesn't remember her or pretends not to, and then says, "Oh, you used to sit in the back of class drawing pictures on your jeans. Wow, your skin has really cleared up. What a fucking bitch."
Yeah.
And then Piper's kind of like, "Yeah, like it's been 10 years, whatever." Because she's like, "Oh, like, did you go on medication? Like, whatever." Bitchy. And then Piper asks her how she can help, and Missy tells her to take out the trash. And she says she'll do it and like gets super awkward. And then from the bar, we see Prue and Justin sitting together watching this happen. And Prue starts to get up and says that Piper needs her help, but Justin stops her and says she has to find her legs on her own sometimes. Remember when she ran for freshman class secretary? She got so nervous that you had to go up on stage and finish her speech for her. And Prue says, "See, I knew that you remembered me. Why did you call me Phoebe?" And he says, "Listen, you plagued my high school existence. I pretended not to know your name. A guy's got to turn the tables every, 10 years or so."
So a lot going on here. I mean, this bitch, Missy Campbell. I feel like I see things like this and I'm like, do people really act like that? But I feel like I get it because you find that in California.
I also feel like people do act like this, but they're a little subtler. Like I feel like they're
Yeah,
a little more passive aggressive than how she's being, but like for the sake of the plot, they have to make it like very outright and blatant.
right. But it's like, ugh, I hate her already. She pisses me off.
Yeah. Like, please grow up, Missy. Like,
Hopefully she gets what's coming to her.
yes. And also you would think that like Missy would be very aware of Piper, because like when you think about how a reunion goes. So obviously Missy's on the planning committee. She's like organizing the reunion, right? Piper owns the
Hmm.
club that it's being hosted at. So she had to have at some point been communicating with Piper, probably met with her before to see the venue. Like it just doesn't make sense that they wouldn't have run into each other before this.
Yeah, no, that doesn't track for me. I mean, I guess they were doing it for plot, but it wouldn't make sense that it's at her club and they haven't seen each other.
Yes. And also that like ask Piper to take out the trash, like just to be bitchy. It's like, come on.
Right, like knowing that she owns this place. It's I don't know. It's fucked up to me. Like you
Yeah.
obviously didn't know who she was. You were pretending.
Yeah. And then
Mm.
I like this little backstory of like the way Prue always like jumps in for Piper. I feel like that makes total sense with Prue's character. And it also does explain a lot about the way Piper is, because when you have someone constantly jumping in and not letting you fight your own battles, it makes sense that you would have a hard time doing it if you never had to.
Agreed. Yeah. I do like her being there for her and taking on this older sister protective role. It feels very Prue to me. And yeah, I don't know. It works for their relationship. If Prue's always been there for her, kind of fighting her battles, then I wouldn't expect her to act any different in a situation like this. You know,
Mhm.
like why would Piper know how to handle when someone's acting like this if she's never really had to before?
Yeah. And I like the way that Justin handles it and the way he kind of like knows how to talk to her and kind of like get her to give Piper the room she needs to really grow and have this experience. I think that that shows a lot because
Right,
we
I
can
totally
assume by
agree.
the fact that he's friends with Piper that he was awkward in high school too. And we're getting that based off of how he's saying that, Prue kind of plagued him and stuff like that. So the fact that he has grown into that more confident role and wants to see the same for Piper, who's obviously his longtime friend.
Exactly. I like his energy towards her, even though they don't, they obviously disconnected over the years. He seems like a genuine dude, and I think that I kind of am getting a cute little vibe between him and Prue, and it makes me happy because based on the way he's handling her and helping out Piper and trying to make things better for her, like seems like a good dude. Seems like he'd be good for all the sisters, and maybe this will become something, I'm hoping.
Yeah,
I could see Prue with him.
yeah, me too. Especially, I'll talk more about that as we get later into the episode and see more of their scene.
Right, agreed. So after he says this, Terra walks down the stairs, obviously as the guy, and looks around. Then she notices Piper picking up trash, and back by the bar, Prue and Justin are still talking, and he says that she did him a favor. He's like, "See, I don't go for women like you anymore." She's like, "Women like me?" He's like, "Well, number one on my list, no women who make me drool. They hold way too much power." And she smiles and she says, "You have a list?" And he smiles too. And then she notices Piper picking up the trash and is like, "Oh no," and runs over and asks what she's doing, then reminds her that she owns the club and can just ask somebody else to do it. And Piper says she can't. And being around these people makes me feel exactly like I did when I was 16, invisible and inferior. And Prue says, "You want me to beat them up? Because I'll beat them up one by one." And she says, "No, it's not them. It's just me." And Prue says, "So what are you going to do about it?" She says, "I'm going to take out the trash and try and get a grip on, and then I'm going to come back in here and do something about these streamers and balloons because what are we still at the prom?" And then she grabs the bag and goes outside while Prue sits back down with Justin and Terra follows Piper outside.
So I like both these little scenes. I feel like they're well written. I feel like they're really constructing the characters in an interesting way. I like the dynamic we're seeing between Prue and Justin here. I don't love the idea of like, oh, I don't go for women like you anymore, whatever. But it works and it adds to their dynamic, so I'll accept it.
You don't like it? I thought it was like slick, like, oh, make her think that I'm actually saying something bad, but really he means like a good thing. Like someone who I think is someone who just takes my breath away, you know?
Yeah.
I
And
thought
I
it was
get
kind
it.
of cute.
I get why it's a compliment, but like at the same time, it's kind of saying like, oh, now I go for like women who are easier to get. I feel like that's kind of the like impression that it's leaving on me, which I don't love.
I guess I could get that, but it felt almost more like a joke, Kind of
That's
just a way to
fair, and I
slide
think it
something in.
is kind of, like, flirty and fun, and that's why I'm accepting it, but, like, I don't love
Right.
the
Just
line. Like, I like the delivery, I think the actor did a good job with it because that line could have been played way grosser.
yeah, it definitely could have came across really creepy, but it came off like kind of subtle, like he's just trying to shoot his shot a little bit and it I didn't mind it, It could have came off way more like douchebaggy for sure.
Yeah, and, I like this list thing that they have in common, I think it's cute, I like the way that it's gonna come up again later, I won't get into it right now, but I do enjoy that. I also enjoy the way that Prue now, when Piper is aside, right? So she's not fighting Piper's battles for her, but going aside to give her advice. That works for me. That's really strong, very sisterly.
Right, I definitely agree. And her saying, I mean, I thought it was kind of cute too, the Prue being like, "I'll beat them up one by one." Like it was a cute little sisterly moment to me. And Piper, I hate seeing this for her, but I'm hoping that she finds her way through this.
Yes. And I love the way Piper's like, we have to do something about these streamers. Total agreement. hideous.
I know. That was a lot. Like, what the hell's going on?
It literally looks like 80s prom, like,
It really does.
but ooh, Terra is following Piper. Something bad's gonna happen.
I know. Terra's following her outside. There might be a transfer soon.
All right. So then we're outside by the dumpster, and Piper is throwing out a bag of trash, and Tara like runs up and scares the shit out of Piper, and then Piper's like calms down, but then just then she like has a knife and stabs the guy she's possessing in the chest. And then Piper starts freaking out again and like runs over, and then we see that blue essence come out of him and go into Piper. And then Tara like finds like this sheet on top of the garbage and just covers the body with it. And we see Piper's reflection in like this broken piece of glass. And Tara says, "You better be as powerful as they say you are." And like Piper's face just looks shocked. And she, like, the other like soul was all dressed in white with like the glow around her.
So now our girl Piper is possessed. She's up next.
And I
Poor
will
business
say,
guy.
I know, RIP, but also the scene is just so funny. Like all the like big jumps and reactions and everything really work.
I know, it worked so well for me. She was like, oh my god, like, didn't see you there. And then all of a sudden he just stabs himself in the chest. Like, I wouldn't even know how to react in that situation.
I know.
I think it would have taken me a second to even comprehend what just happened.
No, literally.
That's bizarre, but that is really funny. So now back inside P3, Terra walks back in and looks in a reflection. And she's like, help me out. What's our sister's name? And Piper says, if you get out of my body now, I might not have to vanquish your sorry ass. And she says, not as weak as you seemed after all. That'll change. And she walks away.
The only thing I'll say about that is we're really just getting this idea of the dynamic that I think is going to exist between these two, and I'll have more to say about it later.
Me too. I do like Piper's like immediate confidence and kind of see, it's nice because you almost see the difference between her here and her with her high school
Yeah, because
crowd.
it's the difference of like her as like that insecure 16-year-old versus her as that super powerful witch that she was talking about before.
Exactly. And so you get to see both sides of like her personality shown through. This is the part where we've seen so much growth from her. Whereas the other side, like I said, seeing those people, it was like a setback for her. So it is
Yeah,
funny that now she's in this position and seeing and kind of regaining the Piper that we know and love, you know?
yes. And it brings me back to our conversation a few episodes ago about the way it's a lot easier for her to stand up around people who are new to her life versus like her sisters, or in this case, people who knew her when she was very young from school.
Right, exactly.
So then we're over by the bar, and Prue and Justin are still talking. And Prue says, "Wow, you only scored a 4. That is just so sad." And he says, "Excuse me, but you only scored a 5 out of 10 on my list." She says, "Right. So I got an F, but dude, you got an F minus." He says, "Ouch, that's a bad high school flashback." And both of them are laughing. And that's when Prue notices Piper doing a shot by the bar and runs over. She's like, "I don't really think that's the best way to deal with your reunion jitters." And she's like, "What? Oh, okay." And then Missy walks over and asks Piper to like move something. And she's like, "Sure, whatever you say." And then Prue's like, "No, you stand up to her. You can do it." And Tara as Piper is like, "Okay, hey, bitch, move the trace yourself."
It's so
And
good.
it's so good. And then Missy just looks so mad and but like goes and does it. And then Prue's like, "Hey, that was great. Although the bitch part might have been a little much, but." And Piper grabs Prue's wrists and says, "Prue, help me." And she's like, "All right, what's wrong?" And Piper says that she just doesn't feel well and should go home. And Prue thinks she's just trying to get out of the reunion and says she's not going to let her and that she better be back by 6. And she agrees and then leaves.
So I love this whole scene here. It worked so well for me, like perfectly comedic. It made total sense. I love that they slipped in Piper kind of being strong enough to regain control of her body for a second and try to get Prue to help her, but obviously then it wasn't enough.
Mhm.
But maybe that'll help her throughout if she is able to do it again.
Yes, definitely. And I like the way that we're seeing, like, Terra not really knowing how to play Piper, and so kind of be like, "Oh, okay," and then doing, like, whatever she's told to do. I think it's
Right.
really funny, I think it really works. I also enjoy, Prue and Justin little banter at the beginning, how they're ranking on each other's lists. I think that's cute. And I think it just goes to show that, like, when you do have that list of requirements, when you meet someone you actually like, they're not gonna check off those boxes.
Right, exactly. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it's kind of funny and it's cute that they both did that for each other. It was a nice little flirty situation going on there.
Yes.
So now out in the alleyway, Kirkin is walking around holding his hand out and searching and looks really pissed off. And then he finds the body of like the video game guy and brings him back to life with his powers. And the guy gets up and is super confused. And Kirkin asks who the spirit that possessed him replaced him with. And he tells him that it was a brown haired woman from Prescott Street and that she was talking about wanting to kill some guy. And then after he gets all of the information he wants, he re-kills him and then covers his body again and leaves. It's nice of them to cover up. So Kirkin being high drama again. Not really digging the way he plays it, but it's okay.
And, I like the way he's like, "Oh, it's exactly what I would have done, blah, blah, blah." Like, I like the energy in this scene a little better than last time. But
Right,
also this
definitely.
poor guy back to life just to die again.
I know. Poor guy had no clue what happened to him and never will. That's it for him.
RIP to him,
Video game guy.
video game guy. It's also interesting the way we see that like Kirkin can somehow like trace her or like sense
Mhm.
her. So I'm interested to see when he'll find her again and like what'll happen now that she's in one of the charmed ones.
Right. If it's gonna make them find out if he's gonna end up killing them or what's gonna happen.
Exactly. So then we're at the Historical Society, and Phoebe is talking to a woman at the front desk about Benjamin Coleridge Turner. And the woman says that there's no date of death for his wife and like saying how this is weird and must be a clerical error. And then Phoebe kind of brings up that they had a baby. And she says, yes, Cole Turner, born in 1885, and that there's no date of death for him either. And she says again that it must be some type of error and like makes a joke about how he's not alive at 115. And Phoebe kind of like plays along with the joke and laughs, but then like looks upset.
Right. I wonder what she thinks, like, finding out this information does. I mean, I would be curious too. I'd probably do a little bit of research, but I wonder if she like is gonna use it for any way or like what the point of it is. Does she have a goal with it? I don't
I
know.
think for her, the goal is just to know more about Cole's past and where he comes from.
Right.
But I'm interested to see why this information is going to be important to us as the viewers. I mean, we're continuing to talk about Cole, we're getting more of his history, which does tell me that he probably is coming back at some point and that this information might become important in the future.
I think that he must be because the fact that we're getting more information about him and not less or just letting it be kind of tells us that their story isn't finished yet. And obviously we know that he's alive, so he probably will turn up at some point, and I'm definitely looking forward to see if and when that happens and how everything goes.
Yeah. I'm also interested like what the woman thinks Phoebe is researching, like what this project she's doing is about.
Yeah, she's probably so confused. So now we are back at the manor, and Tara walks in and goes up to the mirror and says, "Don't you get it? He's going to find us." And Piper says, "Okay, I'll say it again slowly. Try to follow this time. I'm not going to tell you what my powers are." And Tara says, "I can't figure out if you're stubborn or stupid. If I can't fight him, he's going to kill us." And she looks out the window and starts breathing really heavy and says, "He's looking for me. I can feel him. He's getting close." And she says, "Well, get out of my body and I'll help you fight him." And she says, "I can't survive without a body, and I'd much rather your soul die than mine." Then she walks into the conservatory, and Piper appears in the window reflection. And she says that her sisters will figure it out and that she'll get stronger and reach out to them. And Terra's like, wrong, you'll get weaker, and in a few hours you'll die, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And then she says, well, then you better watch your back, because if I die, my sisters will make you wish you died with me. And she notices the sisters care about her and gets somewhat of an idea. So she walks into the kitchen and calls P3 to tell Prue that a demon is after her. So I like the dynamic between these two, kind of their two energies and their banter between each other. Piper obviously plays this character really well too. I mean, she's just a terrific actor in general, so I'm not surprised, but it's all working for me, the way that they have to work together. I can only imagine how weird it must be though, like talking to yourself in the mirror and then having to like play the other part back. Like I wonder how they do it where she knows when to respond and how to react, you know?
Yeah, no, it definitely seems super difficult. I mean, what they do is they have a stand-in, right, who reads the lines to you from outside so that you're reacting to something.
Gotcha. Didn't
But
know
I
that.
mean, yeah, that's how they typically do it when a person's playing more than one character in a scene. I also really enjoy the subtleties and the differences between the two characters that she's doing here. I like the similarity of the nervousness we're seeing in the two characters. Piper's being about, her high school quote friends, and Terra's being about Kirkin and what'll happen when he finds her. I also like how smart she is to put together the connection between the sisters and how, like many demons have done before, she might be able to use that sisterly connection to her advantage.
Exactly. So I'm looking forward to seeing if this works for her.
And I'm also excited to have a really badass female like villain in this episode.
I know, I'm definitely enjoying it. She might come up for me when we talk about favorites.
Yeah, I'm feeling she will for me too.
Oh, and I just realized that it's not two other actors that play Terra. There's a third.
Third. Oh yeah, there is a third. You're
Yeah.
right. I
Looking
forgot about that.
looking forward to that one too. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it though.
Exactly. So then we're at P3 and Prue is behind the bar and Missy comes over to her and says she needs her to help the DJ set up, and Prue like itches her nose and makes all the balloons fall from the ceiling. And Missy's like, that's the third time that's happened, and goes over to pick them up. Then Justin walks over and mentions that he thinks that it might be a poltergeist causing the balloons to fall. And Prue's like, do you really believe in that stuff? And he says, yeah, absolutely. It makes life interesting. And she smiles and he's kind of like, what? And she says, nothing. It's just that I think believing in the supernatural should definitely be on my list. And then they're both like all smiley and the phone rings. And Prue answers and asks Piper what's wrong. And she tells her that there was a demon in the house. And that's when Prue's like, oh, did you freeze him? And obviously, then Terra learns what her power is. And she describes him as having like wild hair and bulgy eyes. And Prue says that she's going to get Phoebe and Piper should look for him in the book and that they'll meet her at the house to vanquish him. And then she starts running out of P3.
All right. So loving again the energy between Prue and Justin. They are kind of adorable together. And I like their little awkward flirtiness that they got going on. You know, they both are trying to be a little confident, but you could tell they both seem a little bit giddy about it. Like, it's nice. I like seeing that side of Prue, you know?
Yeah, and I like the funness of her like realizing that the supernatural is an important part of her life. And I will point out that Andy also believed in the supernatural.
It is. I mean, it's a big part of her life, and maybe it should be a requirement. Maybe it's giving her little Andy flashbacks.
Yes. Also, one thing in this scene that makes no sense to me. So, if Prue is only 2 years older than Piper, which I think is what the show is trying to say, even though at one point we thought she was 3 to 4 years older, Missy would obviously know who Prue is.
Right.
So, why would she be so like, oh, do this to me when she knows like Prue is obviously not that bitch?
She wants to act like she's top dog.
Because like
She
Prue
obviously just
obviously
has
was
no respect
older
for
than you.
anybody.
Yeah.
Like, so that doesn't mean she respects her. We already know that she's a bitch.
No, but I'm saying like that would have made like Prue popular and ahead of her. So she should have like in high school been trying to impress Prue, right? If Prue's like the top of their school. So like should she still feel that way now?
I guess, but maybe now that they're older and she's the one, like, I don't know, maybe she feels like career status and just in general, she's like, thinks she's better than just everybody.
Okay, that's fair. I'll accept that. I'll accept that. Prue is kind of like, freelance photographer living at home. So she's kind of like, well, you were cooler than me in high school, but I'm cooler than you now.
Yeah, like, could be the case, you never know.
Yeah. Also, Prue accidentally revealing Piper's powers to Terra.
I know, that worked really well for me. I think that was a smart plan on her part, too.
Yes. And the way that she jumps right in, she's like, I'll get Phoebe. Makes sense. All of this is working for me plot wise.
So, now back at the manor in the kitchen, Terra says, "Where's the book?" And Piper, whose reflection is now like in a pot, says, you just made a big mistake calling my sisters home." Terra says, "Is that what you think?" She says, "That's what I know." She says, "Well, here's what I think. When your precious sisters come home, I'll kill you and possess one of them. And if that one won't help me, I'll simply repeat the process. So what do you say, Piper? 1 dead demon or 3 dead witches?" And then Piper kind of rolls her eyes and tells her where the book is, and she goes to find it in the attic. She is smart. She knows how to play it, dude.
Yeah, she's a really, really, really good villain. Like, she's smart, she's well done, she's like taking advantage of the little things she realizes, and she plays logic really well, even though we know that she's having a really emotional reaction because we can see that fear of Kirkin in her. She's really good at saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And guess what? You're all going to die. Like, no matter what, you have to help me. And playing to that like sisterly connection, she's doing a good job of it.
Agreed.
And I like the way that Piper is continuing to fight, but then eventually does have to give in to what Terra's saying there. So then our next scene is a phone call between Prue and Phoebe, where Prue's in her car and Phoebe is still at the Historical Society. Phoebe picks up the phone and Prue says, "Don't panic, but Piper found a demon in the house and I'm on my way." And she's like, "Was it, wait, who was it? What demon?" And Prue describes him and says that he said he would be back. And she says that she's on her way to pick her up at the library. And that's when she says, "Prue, I'm not at the library." Prue asks where she is, and she says she's at the Historical Society and that she needed to do research for a project. And Prue says it's fine and she'll pick her up there to meet her outside, then hangs up, and we see that Phoebe looks really upset.
Nice of her to not even be concerned about this demon that's after her. Funny
Yeah,
because she
no,
thought it was Cole.
I know. I was gonna say her only concern was that it was Cole and that they found out she's keeping secrets, not even
Yeah,
that
I
like
know.
Piper's in danger.
Literally, like, okay, be a little more self-involved.
Like, we've talked a lot about Prue having a one-track mind this season. Now we're seeing Phoebe's.
I know.
Blatantly obvious.
It's coming in there. Sometimes love does that to you, though. It's okay. It
But I
happens.
mean, love or your sister's life?
I know life or death situations might be a little different, but I guess to be fair, they are quite used to this.
True, it is an every week occurrence for the twin ones.
It's so sad.
And I
Mm,
mean, you know what? To be fair, Prue did start the conversation by saying, "Don't panic." So Phoebe's reaction appropriate. She was just following Prue's advice.
true. Yeah, that's valid, I guess. So now back at the manor outside, we see Kirkin is across the street holding up his hand, obviously still searching. And then it cuts back into the manor, and in the stairway, Terra walks down and says, "I can't wait for your sisters. Can't I just do the spell myself?" And Piper says, "No, it's a power of 3 spell." And she's like, "What kind of witch can't kill a demon without her sisters?" And she's like, "What the hell kind of demon has a panic attack when her boyfriend comes to visit?" And then the door opens and Kirkin walks in and Tara looks panicked. Then Piper tells her to freeze him and he uses telekinesis and throws her onto the floor. Then he pulls out a knife to kill her and she says he just pissed off one of the charmed ones and then freezes him. Then Prue and Phoebe walk in and she tells them that she has the spell and runs over to them. And then they start saying it together as he unfreezes and starts kind of slowly melting and dropping this green bottle. And he says, "No, I could have helped you. Now she'll destroy you." And then Tara smiles, then gets straight faced so that they don't notice. And Prue and Phoebe both look a little concerned about whatever the hell he means by that. So Rip
Um,
Kirkin.
yep. R.I.P.
I know. Poor
So I
guy.
have a kind of a lot to say about this scene.
Do you?
Um,
Okay.
yes. So I'll start with, the whole power of three spell thing. Obviously, that's going to come up again later. But obviously, Kirkin's kind of powerful if it takes a power of three spell to vanquish him.
Yeah, more powerful than I thought.
One thing I don't love here is, what the hell kind of demon has a panic attack when her boyfriend comes to visit? What Kirkin and Terra have is very obviously an abusive relationship. And I get it because we're portraying like evil characters, but it's really hard to take what is so blatantly like he's in total control of her. He created her to be his like little like love puppet. Like it's just like it's gross. It's really gross. It's really rapey. And I feel like the show kind of just takes a step back from that because she's a villain. And we're not really like we see in her the panic, the fear, right? All of this stuff that Holly Marie Combs is bringing to the table so excellently throughout this portrayal. And I feel like we should kind of feel sorry for her.
I do see what you're saying in a sense. They kind of set up this idea of a really abusive, toxic relationship and then didn't really do anything with that. Just kind of left it as like okay, well, she's evil too, so who cares?
Yeah.
And it's like a little weird when you look at it that way, but it kind of didn't really like occur to me like that, you know? I guess
And
I'm
like
just
he's
seeing it as like the
very
general.
violent with her. Like he throws her and she has no reaction. She's like a deer in headlights. Like that's so typical of someone who's a victim of like violence against them.
I know, that's really sad.
And it's just
That's
like
true.
it's hard to see this man so blatantly being an abuser against this woman, but like her being the villain of the episode, which I love having her as the villain. I think she's an excellent villain. I just like there was enough with the control aspects of it without making it like these implications of like sexual and physical violence against her too.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that because it did come across that way, very rapey and creepy.
Yeah,
Not a fan. Do better,
not a
guys.
fan. Yeah. Convenient that the sisters arrived just in time. Love to see it.
I know. Perfect timing. It was almost meant to be.
And I'm also interested to see kind of where the thing goes for her. I'm happy that she vanquished her abuser. The I could have helped you. I don't believe you, Kirkin.
Yeah, of course not. You're a demon. You wouldn't have done anything.
No, literally.
But I'm definitely looking forward to see what's next because obviously we don't have to worry about Kirkin anymore, but he did make things a little more confusing for the charmed ones, which leads me to believe they'll be on some sort of path to figure out what's actually going on with Piper.
Yes. And I'd also like to rescind my RIP to him. Don't RIP. Burn in hell. That's
Burn
my
in
new
hell.
thing. So then we go up to the attic, and the sisters are all walking over to the book, and Prue's like, "What did you say his name was again?" And Terra's Piper says, "Kirkin, but he's dead, so what are we doing up here?" And Prue says, "We have to at least acknowledge that there's some kind of she demon after us, Piper." She's like, "Why?" And Phoebe points out his words, and she's holding the green bottle. And, she says, "It was said by a demon. Demons lie. So I say we get rid of the ugly little bottle and get on with our lives." And Phoebe says it's their only clue and that sometimes demons actually tell the truth, which, obviously a hint at Cole. And then Terra says that she has a party to get ready for and starts to leave. Then Prue asks if she's changing her clothes again, and she looks down and says definitely, then starts to open the door, but Piper again takes control and closes it and says, "Prue, I'm dying." And Prue's like, "What?" And Terra covers it up saying, "I'm dying to get out of these clothes. You sure you don't mind if I leave?" And they say no, and she goes.
I kind of love this. They did it again. Piper being able to regain control a little bit. And as far as her energy obviously being like, who cares anymore, whatever, and the sisters like she's not really trying that hard to play Piper and be as concerned. She wants to let it go so that they don't figure out that she can die, you know, or like that they could
Yes.
kill her. But then like once Piper rises to the surface and she has to try to cover it up, she all of a sudden acts all sweet and innocent again and tries to play like Piper. I love it.
Yeah, like she's very much like playing this role, kind of doing her thing, but she's also kind of giving herself away, which obviously will come up later. So I like this scene. I think it's really well done on all their part.
Agreed. So then Phoebe asks what's up with her, and Prue's like, it's funny, I was kind of wondering the same thing about you. She says, Phoebe, why did you lie to us? Why did you say you were going to be at the library all night? And she's like, oh, okay. I wanted to check out Cole's ancestry, and I knew that you wouldn't like it. And she goes over and picks up some paper. Then Prue says, you have to know that you can talk to me, and I'm not going to judge you. I mean, if you still have feelings for Balthazar. And Phoebe says, no, I don't still have feelings for Balthazar. I still have feelings for Cole. I mean, he was half human. And she says, well, he tried to kill us for 2 months, Phoebe. Half human or not, that still makes him a bad guy. And Phoebe says, but he didn't kill us because of his good side, Prue, which was very good. I mean, his dad was a statesman who did all these amazing things. Look. And she shows her some papers that she's holding, but Prue doesn't even look at them. And Prue says, his good side and his evil side, they're both dead. And I don't think separating them in your mind is going to help you let him go. And Phoebe says, I just really need to believe in his good side right now, Prue. And Prue says, all right, and that they can just focus on their current demon. And Phoebe agrees, but looks away, and then Prue goes back to looking in the book. Kind of
So
nice that she subtly, like, doesn't say anything, but she's also not denying anything. So I kind of like the way they played this conversation.
yeah, I do too. And like this scene makes me a lot more like emotionally connected to it than I thought it would. The way that when Prue's so focused on Phoebe that she's ignoring all the signs with Piper that Phoebe's clearly picking up on here.
Mm-hmm.
And also the way that Phoebe is her feelings and this interest and this thing she's struggling with. And Prue's kind of like trying to stop her from thinking about it, which I get where Prue's like, you need to move on, it's over, whatever. But for Phoebe, it's not. And like, even if she had really vanquished Cole, she is struggling with something. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've never obviously dated someone who turned out to be a demon, but I have dated someone who pretty toxic. And that idea of like trying to rate the good parts from the bad parts, I get needing to do that because like you don't want to see like, oh, I missed all these things. You want to be like, well, there were these good things too. And that's why it's hard to let go of and no one's understanding that part. So I totally get where Phoebe's coming from in this scene.
Right, because it wasn't all bad. And I think everybody can kind of relate to that in a certain sense. If you've been through a relationship, it's a lot easier for people on the outside to say these things and kind of look down on these people and change their perspective on people versus someone who was in the relationship and knows a little more of those person's intentions, had trust and love for that person, saw the good side of them, you know? It's a really real thing. And sometimes you do need to separate those things in order to make it hurt a little bit less. And if that's what Phoebe needs to do, I mean, I do understand where Prue's coming from, but it's not that easy to
Yeah.
just get over someone.
And also the way she's like not even willing to look at like the stuff that Phoebe's presenting her that like is obviously in some way helping Phoebe, which I get there's a lot of other things going on, but like at the same time, it's like you could at least look at the paper and pretend to care about what Phoebe's talking
I
about.
know, like pretend to care about what Phoebe's fucking going through. Here she is trying to open up to you and you're like, nah, fuck that shit, let him go.
No, because that's the thing. This whole time they're like, Phoebe, you're not talking to us, you're distancing yourself. And here Phoebe is finally saying, this is what I'm going through, this is what I need to do to heal. And she's saying, well, you shouldn't separate his good and bad
No, no,
side.
no, don't do
He's
that.
evil.
Nah, bitch, you're handling this all wrong.
Literally.
Like, all right.
So then we're down in Piper's room and we see Piper's reflection in the mirror and she's saying, okay, we vanquished your boyfriend. Now, why don't you give me my body back and save yourself while you can? And Tara's now wearing this like very sexy, like red shirt and like leather pants, looking hot as hell. Hair's out of the bun. It's all like curly and messy. And she says, the only way I know how to get out of a body is a knife to the heart. You don't really want that, do you? She says, so tell my sisters, and they'll come up with a spell to get you out of me safely, and then in exchange, we'll let you go free. She says, and give up the power to freeze? A chance to be one of the infamous charmed ones? No thanks, I'll stay. But don't worry, it'll be over soon. It's easier if you don't fight it. Then Piper in the mirror notices Leo orbing in and says, well, if my sisters don't figure you out and destroy you, my boyfriend Tom will. And then Leo is there in a suit and says, wow, looking at Piper. And Terra says, Tom, you scared me. I didn't hear the door.
Oh, I
And he
love it.
says, the door. Call me Tom. And she says, did I? And then looks at Piper in the mirror and says, forgive me. And then grabs Leo and starts like making out with him. But he is not into it at all and says that her kisses seems different. And she says he's being ridiculous. And then he asks what his name is. And she turns to the mirror and says, you couldn't just leave it well enough alone, could you? And then uses her power to throw Leo into the wall and knock him out and says, that's okay. He's too cute to kill. And anyways, by the time he wakes up, you'll be gone. Besides, I have a party to attend and lots to celebrate, and then leaves the room.
So I love this whole scene. Probably one of my favorites of the episode. It worked so well for me. I mean, again, the dynamic between the two of them, Terra being like, no, like I'm staying, and Piper trying to talk her out of it, and then hit her with that, you're not the only smart one. Got him.
I know,
Got
the
her to
Tom
know.
thing is genius.
So genius. I loved it. That was such a quick, because she didn't even know he was coming or anything. That was such a quick, like, thought up thing. Worked for
Obviously
me
Leo
so
would
well.
pick up on it, and her wanting to keep her power as someone evil, it makes sense. Demons love power, so it totally, like, everything in the scene is just working really well. I love this plot, and I'm so excited to see where things are going here.
Me too, definitely.
How are the sisters going to get out of this one? Now the one person who knows is unconscious.
I know, the one person who can understand what's going on.
Also, the fact that it took Leo so little to figure it out, but like she's been giving Prue all these signs and Prue isn't picking up on it.
I know, like, Piper is obviously acting different.
Yes.
So, now back up in the attic, Prue and Phoebe are still by the book, and Prue is explaining that alchemists can transform anything and even have the ability to bring the dead back to life. And then Phoebe notices Piper outside the window and says, that's weird. Piper just left without Leo, and she didn't say goodbye to us or come up and show us what she's wearing or anything. And then Prue finds the bottle and says that it's an essence bearer. An alchemist would use a bottle such as this to capture or store a life essence. And a life essence is comparable to a human soul, but made in a mixing lab, and lethal to the possessed being's pre-existing soul. And she, like, slowly realizes what's going on and explains it to Phoebe, like, oh, Piper's been acting weird and this and that. And then she's like, Piper's possessed. And they decide to write a dispossessing spell.
Finally, Prue.
Yeah, about time you understood.
But the connections in this scene work. I like the way they're seeing this, and of course, getting that information about alchemists was interesting. I liked learning this little backstory. I thought overall this was a good scene. It worked for me.
Agreed. Worked for me too.
So then we're at P3, and we get the scene that is the reason this episode has its name. Mia, have you seen the movie Coyote Ugly?
Oh no, this is based on a movie?
Yes. So Coyote Ugly is a movie that came out around this time. It's about a girl named Piper who moves from New Jersey to New York City and gets a job at this dive bar where what the girls do is they're really mean to the customers, but they dance on the bar and pour shots into people's mouth. And it's like a really fun movie, basically. But it's about their experiences working at this bar. So that's why this episode is named Coyote Piper.
Wow, I didn't realize that's what it was. I wondered why it was called that.
Yes.
That is so funny. I love that.
Yeah. So we go into the scene and we see Terra doing like this sexy dance on the bar, pouring shots into people's mouth. And we see Phoebe and Prue walking down the stairs. And Phoebe is saying that she hopes that Prue is wrong and Piper's not possessed. But then obviously, as soon as they see what's going on, they know that it's true. And Prue says that they need to get her alone. And then some girl walks up and asks if they're her sisters. And she thinks Piper's an alcoholic and offers to like give her help and talks about how she's sober and like gives them her number. And like Prue and Phoebe like give her weird looks, which, judgmental and rude. I don't really get why this was there. I just felt like it was like making fun of alcoholism, which I felt like was just so weird to be thrown in there. But whatever. Alcoholism isn't a serious disease or anything. And Missy goes over to yell at her husband because he's like dancing with Piper slash Terra, and like freezes her and just keeps dancing with the husband. And then Phoebe and Prue come over and Phoebe bumps into her, which unfreezes her and makes her spill her drink all over herself. So she leaves. And then Prue's like, your wife went that way, bye. And he leaves. And then they grab Terra and say they need to show her something.
I love this so much. Piper, I must say, absolutely killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that girl, I didn't know she had moves like that.
I know.
Like, okay,
Like we're
Piper.
not used to Piper being like this like sensual like this is not her energy. This is an energy we get from Phoebe, occasionally from Prue. We never get this from Piper and it's so fun.
No, she's like a little lover girl, not kind of one of those like, and obviously it's not her technically, but like this is so funny to me to see her like this. She looks sexy as hell, I'll give her that. Not that I support these men trying to cheat on their wives and
Yeah.
her taking advantage of that. But I mean, she looks like Tara's definitely having a good time. That's all that matters.
Exactly. She's enjoying her new body.
Now she's single and definitely ready to mingle. So her boyfriend's dead. It's time for her to free herself,
She just got out of an abusive relationship. She needs to have some fun. I'm all for
Exactly.
it. You go, Terra.
It's well deserved.
I like that Missy got a drink spilled on her. She deserved it. Her husband sucks. She should leave him and find someone else, though, because ew.
Yeah. Well, she probably couldn't find someone that much better being with her awful personality.
True, but even awful people don't deserve to be cheated on.
Of course not. I just mean it would make it more difficult to find a good person if you're not
That's
a good
true. Maybe
person
she
either.
needs to like work on herself and then she can find a new partner.
Exactly. So now we are in the back alley again, and Prue and Phoebe push her out there and do a spell, but it doesn't work, and she smiles. And she says, "Clever girls. Piper said you would figure it out, although Piper won't be saying anything in about a half an hour." And Phoebe says she's too strong, we need the power of 3. And Prue says, "You have 10 seconds to leave on your own." And she says, "Or what? What are you gonna do? Hit me with another rhyming couplet? I'm made from Kierke's blood, which means I have his powers. Add that to Piper's powers, and I'm stronger than your average essence." And then Phoebe starts calling for Leo, and she says, "Oh, is that the boyfriend? I had to give him a little jolt. He'll be unconscious for a while." And then Phoebe says, "You might be able to knock out a white lighter, but don't even think you can take on the charmed ones." And she pulls out the bottle, and Terra says, the bottle won't work on me unless I'm not in a body. And to get me out, you'd have to kill your own sister. Call me a gambler, but I seriously doubt you're willing to do that." Then Prue throws her into a wall and says, "Get the hell out of my sister." And she says, "All right," and uncovers the dead guy's body from before. And she grabs the knife out of him and goes to stab herself in Piper's chest, but Prue's like, "Stop." And then she turns and is like, "That's what I thought." And then does this really cool flip with the knife and hands it to them all badass and walks away.
Yes. Oh, she's so badass. I'm in love with her.
I'm living for Terra. I can't even lie.
Like, she's so daring. She's so fun. Because the thing is, she stabs herself. Nothing bad happens to her. She just goes into a new body. So
Right.
she has nothing to lose here.
Exactly. So they know that she knows that she could walk away and be fine because there's nothing they can do.
Exactly. And I like this, it makes sense that they can't vanquish her because she's made from Kierke's blood. So it took the power of 3 to stop him. It'll take the power of 3 to stop her, too.
Exactly. So she's in a pretty good situation right now. How
Yeah.
are they
And
going to get out
again,
of this one?
I know because she's still playing up that you guys won't hurt your sister thing. So I really wonder how they're getting out of this one.
I know this one seems a little difficult, They're in quite a pickle.
So then we're back inside of P3, and Prue and Phoebe go to get Piper and Terra to leave with them. And then they all start like fighting each other. And her and Prue are like slapping each other. And then Prue does this like karate move and knocks her out. And Missy says to somebody, "I knew they weren't that close." And then Justin walks over and Prue's like, she's probably possessed. A little help to the car, and the two of them pick her up and carry her out.
I'd be so embarrassed if I was Piper in this situation.
No, when Piper, like, I mean, if Piper goes back to her body later, like, she was so worried about what her classmates were going to think of her. And then this is what they see her sexy dancing and then getting the shit beaten out of her at her own club.
I know, like, that's awkward as hell. But I mean, hey, at least she didn't have to see it for herself.
Yeah. And, now everyone just thinks she's an alcoholic, which is apparently humorous to this show. So,
Hilarious. Love it. So now we are in the manor in the living room and it's nighttime. And they lie Piper on the couch, who is still knocked out. And Prue says, if we can get back the power of 3, we stand a chance. And Phoebe says, I still don't understand how this is going to work. And Prue's like, she has the alchemist powers, which means she has the ability to bring the dead back to life. She's like, yeah, but she's not dead, Prue. Is there something you're not telling me? And she's like, Phoebe, I just need you to trust me, okay? And then she tells her to go find Leo and come back. And so she goes, and Prue hides something on the mantle, then sits by her and says, Piper, I know you're in there somewhere, so just try and listen. Just remember that no matter what happens, I'm gonna bring you back. I'm so sorry, honey. And she's like crying at this point, and she says, I know you tried to tell me in the attic, and I'm gonna fix it, okay? I promise I'll bring you back. And she gets up and walks to the other side of the room, and then says, please forgive me for what I'm about to do. And she uses her powers to throw the knife that she put on the mantle into Piper's chest. And Leo and Phoebe run in, and Leo's like, no. And Phoebe's also freaking out. And then Prue grabs her by the fireplace and, they hides the two of them behind the couch so that the essence can't go into them. And Leo turns and says, I can't heal the dead. And he pulls the knife out, and Terra's essence goes into his body. And Prue says, now you can. And then Terra stands up as our boy Leo and says, that I didn't expect. Little sibling rivalry I failed to take into account. And Prue says, bring Piper back to life and I'll let you keep Leo's body. Refuse and I'll put the knife in his heart and suck you back into that bottle forever. And then she says, but then your sister and her boyfriend would be dead. And Prue says, she's already dead. I have nothing left to lose. Then Prue and Phoebe walk closer holding the bottle. And Terra does the spell to bring Piper back. And she wakes up, and they hand the bottle to Terra and run over to Piper. Then Terra smashes the bottle on the ground, and the sisters start saying the spell to get her dispossessed. Then Terra tries to throw a jolt at them, but Prue deflects it with her powers. And Leo gets dispossessed, and the essence blows up in the air. And they notice that Piper's still bleeding, and they call Leo over to heal her. And he does, and then they hug. What a plan. Honestly,
the way
really
Prue
solid.
kept it a secret from Phoebe, though, like,
that was so perfect.
yeah,
I can't
no,
believe
this
she did
worked
that.
really well.
It did, because that's really smart. It's not something I feel like, been able to figure out. I mean, maybe, but the fact that you have to kill her, like, risk her life, Leo had to be there at the perfect time just to bring her back, and then they hope for the best that Power of 3 works to get her out of Leo. Like, things could have gone very wrong, but she took a chance and it paid off, and it worked really well for me.
Yes, and the way they were able to use that power of 3 spell, it really worked. I like Terra throughout the scene, like thinking she's got the upper hand and then losing in the end. It was really effective. Prue outsmarted her, and I like seeing Prue's a smart girl. I like seeing her play things off like this.
Me too. I definitely do too. I think our boy Leo did a good job at being possessed as well. And Prue, once again, kills it with the emotion. And honestly, almost even made me cry in this scene. It's so cute.
Yeah, the way she's like talking to Piper while she's still unconscious is so sweet. And like, you just know there's that heartbreak in her if this goes wrong, but she has to trust herself and her instincts. And
Mm-hmm.
she ends up doing the right thing because of it. So it definitely works out for her in the end.
Exactly.
And I mean, Brian Cross's acting throughout this scene, amazing. I don't mention it much, but he does emotion really well too. And we definitely see
he
that
does.
Yeah, when Piper is dead and he's like, I can't heal the dead before the possession. It's really well done.
Agreed. Yeah, no, he does a great job. Even I remember we had talked about that in the episode where he got his powers back. And I mean, he's just phenomenal too. We don't give him enough credit.
Yeah, I'm so focused on the amazing women in this show. Sometimes I forget that the men here also do some really impressive and amazing things.
Exactly.
So then we're at P3, and the sisters and Leo walk down the stairs talking about what Terra did at the reunion. And Leo laughs about the table dancing, and then Prue goes behind the bar, and Piper says that she doesn't care what those people think anyway. And Prue's like, really? That's new. And she says, well, my priorities were a little skewed. And she turns to Leo and says, and thank you for knowing the difference between my kisses and hers. And the two of them kiss. Then she thanks Prue for being brave enough to kill her. And Phoebe says that she's going to call Daryl and tell him about the body in the alley. And wow, we have not seen or heard from Daryl in like 5 episodes. So
I know. Where the hell has he been?
I know. Like, Dorian Gregory, do you have another job? Why are you not here?
Yeah, what's going on? This should be your priority.
They're too busy, I guess, paying all these guest stars to bring him around.
It's definitely the case.
Yeah. So, whatever, Phoebe leaves. Then Justin walks over and says, so you said you were going to explain about the bar brawl. And Prue says, and you waited all this time just for an explanation? And he smiles, and so does Piper. And then she calls him out for blushing, and he asks again if he's going to get an explanation. And Prue says, absolutely. He says, when? She says, when you call me, and smiles really big, and he leaves. And then Piper says, I thought younger guys weren't on your list. And she says, what list? And they clink their beers together. And that's the end of that scene.
Very cute. I like that. That was pretty smooth of her. Pretty
Mhm.
smooth of him too. So maybe we will be seeing him again. Unless it's one of those things where they act like it and then
Yeah, like it
we never
seems like
do.
this might be going somewhere, and it was really cute. So I'm hoping we get to see more of them.
Me too.
And, I like this little shift in Piper, kind of realizing that it doesn't matter what these people who aren't in her life think of her, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when's she going to see them again? Next reunion?
Yeah, I know. She's got her better side came out, The growth came out and she realized, it's not even worth it anymore. Not even really
Exactly.
gonna be a part of my life, and here I am still doing these amazing things, so what does it matter? So now in the back room, Phoebe hangs up the payphone and Leo walks in and asks if she's okay. And she says, I don't know. Then he says, Phoebe, you've got to give it some time. Cole, and she says, seduced me, and I let him. On the other hand, Piper was completely overtaken by evil, and she fought it every step of the way. And he says, well, seduction is subtler than possession. It's harder to fight. You didn't know Cole was evil. Nobody did. When you found out, you vanquished him. You have nothing to be ashamed of. And she says, he's still alive. And Leo looks shocked, and then she says, for me. Then he looks sympathetic and she says, says it again, he's still alive for me. And then she leaves and he looks after her like concerned. Almost gave herself away there. Almost couldn't resist. But of course saved it. And I gotta say, I love it every time that when he's the one that's there for her. I mean, we knew from the start they kind of had a good relationship between the two. These two actors have a lot of chemistry and it works really well for me. I think that it's so sweet of him to always be there for them and care about what the other sisters are going through too and not just focused on Piper.
Yes, I love seeing the connection between Leo and the other sisters because at the end of the day, he does have a relationship with all of them. And his and Phoebe's friendship always feels really significant to me. And I think there is a special connection between the two of them. I think we see a lot of like Prue and Piper sticking together. So I love the moments where Leo's really there for Phoebe when she needs it because he is gentler than her sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what Phoebe really needs as she's going through this. So I like that he's the one kind of having this conversation with her.
I definitely agree. I like that they made it him instead of one of the other sisters.
And the way that he's really like sympathetic to her situation, when he says it, because it's so true. Like seduction is subtler than possession. It's
Yeah.
manipulation and it's playing with the way you feel. So
Right, that's way
everything
different.
makes total sense. Yeah.
And it also you can see the kind of switch up in her energy here where she's kind of like now she's starting to feel the regret again and thinks like, okay, I got seduced by evil, like I should have been fighting it. But before it was like, but he loves me and he'd never hurt me, like we see that confliction throughout the episode and what's going on in her head. And it makes total sense to me. And I feel like Leo, especially being the one to talk to these girls in the situation, it is his job to guide them, to help them out in situations. And he does a good job at it. I mean, he really is like the voice of reason and kind of I feel like we noticed that in a lot of episodes he helps them get to where they need to be. Like he really does his job. And I love that.
Yeah, me too.
And that was the final scene of the episode. So what'd you think?
I loved this episode. I loved our conversation. I didn't know it was going to be like this in depth, but I'm really happy it like got to this place.
Me too. I feel like I wasn't expecting it to have this much to talk about with this, but I mean, I guess it was a Monster of the Week episode more so than anything else, but still it felt like there was a lot going on to discuss.
Yeah, like Coyote Piper always feels like just a fun episode to me, but there was actually a lot of like really important stuff. Really excited to see where we go from here. If this whole Phoebe struggling with whether to tell them about Cole is going to be an ongoing thing for a few more episodes, or if we're ending it here and she's just fine with keeping the secret now.
Right, yeah, I'm definitely curious about how that's gonna continue and where that's gonna go.
Hmm.
And of course, hopefully Prue and Justin, we see more of them.
Hmm. And I'm also happy
Anything
we had a Piper centric episode. That's really fun. And I like that.
Me too.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you want to reach out to us or follow us on social media, we're on Instagram and TikTok at rewitched_pod. Or you can send us an email to rewitched.pod@gmail.com. Also, if you would like to subscribe to our Patreon, we have several monthly tiers available at patreon.com/rewitchedpodcast. Either way, we appreciate you listening and hope you'll join us back next time for season 3, episode 10. We all scream for ice cream.